What a complete disaster. What the hell is this? 40,000 views for Mortal Kombat? What? Around the same amount as Once Upon a Time in Katamari and less than Slop like No Man's Sky? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I have heard of it 30 years ago, but it hasn't been relevant in a long time. The last game was terrible. Like, as far as I'm concerned, the series ended at 11, and that was after the very mediocre, disappointing 10th entry and, the long history of bad games after the fourth. So, Mortal Kombat is and has been a dead IP for a long time that had a brief resurgence of popularity because of an excellent reboot with Mortal Kombat 9. And now they are nostalgia baiting you again. Like, remember 30 years ago when you would play Mortal Kombat in the arcade with your, but that was 30 years ago. Okay. Like, the kids back then are in their 40s now. No one's getting excited over ports of 30-year-old Mortal Kombat games, especially not the Game Boy ports that were pretty unpopular even back in the day. Like, no, Mortal Kombat is just an IP that has simply run its course. Okay. It is very similar to Grand Theft Auto in certain ways, in this idea where it's kind of a mediocre IP that's been propped up by shock value and just pandering to like little children. And that's kind of uh, what everyone like talks about when it comes to this game. They don't talk about the lore, the plot, the characters, the games themselves. Now they talk about like, oh, did you know that the government tried to ban this once? you know, it's a reoccurring cope for these people to try and authenticate Mortal Kombat as a legitimate fighting game IP. When in reality, it trails well behind Street Fighter, Tekken, Soul Calibur, Super Smash Bros, Arms, dozens and dozens of better, superior Japanese fighting game franchises. The only thing that keeps Mortal Kombat relevant is this idea that, like, oh, it was violent back in the day. Like, yeah, but today, this kind of thing is not shocking. And today, Mortal Kombat has lost its edge because, much like Grand Theft Auto, it has caved to the woke mindset. Like Mortal Kombat 1 was unbelievably woke. So, when you take that into consideration, when you realize what's going on with WB and NetherRealm Studios and the IP as a whole, like, it's very clear to me and has been for a long time that Mortal Kombat will not survive without Ed Boon. The instant this guy dies or retires, the IP is just going to be strangled by just all of the degenerates that they've brought on board. People who have no idea how to make something cool, interesting, or exciting, and simply make everything exactly like their favorite Marvel movies that they soy jack over. That was something I felt when I played through Mortal Kombat 11, is that it didn't feel like Mortal Kombat, it felt like a Marvel movie. I felt that way playing 10. It didn't feel like Mortal Kombat. It felt like some progressive, just agenda pushing propaganda. Like, oh, we have to take in the outworld refugees. Like, no, like, actually we don't. So, with all that being said, what is like the future of Mortal Kombat? And honestly, at this point, like, it really does feel like the future of Mortal Kombat is in the past, because Mortal Kombat 9 was a reboot to begin with. One was just a retread with like weird remixed characters and ideas. And the only part of the series that anybody is nostalgic for or looks back on fondly are the first three games. And to a certain extent, that's always been true. And if anything, honestly, it's kind of shocking how bad the first three games actually are when you compare them to the stuff that they were competing with at the time. Games like Street Fighter, games like Tekken, games like Killer Instinct. Nintendo was stomping these guys out before they even really got their foot off the ground. They were never able to branch Mortal Kombat off into like spin off franchises. Mortal Kombat Mythologies and Special Forces bombed because that's not what the audience wanted to see. It's been a really interesting like arc for this franchise, and I think it's a really good demonstration of just how inevitable it is for these Western third party developers to just kind of collapse. It doesn't matter how big you are. If you can't maintain the level of quality and keep people engaged with your brand and keep like innovating and doing new things, you are going to fall off. And that's the problem that Mortal Kombat has, because this brand is and has been for a long time a nostalgia brand. This is something that people only go back to and play when they're reminded of the first three games. And that's just the reality of it. And that's why one failed so hard, is that it tried to do it and just completely failed. Right? It just completely messed up. They didn't do anything unique or interesting at all with that with the idea, with the unique vibe of the franchise. They didn't grow or evolve it. They didn't expand like the roster of characters or the world building. Like, it's shocking how often in these plots they just go back to the same old tired formula of like Earth realm versus Outworld. Like, it's very easy to forget that like other realms exist. It's very easy to forget, like, the history of the characters and like all the unique things they can do, because like they've been retconned so much. It's like they absolutely did have a shot at making a really cool, fresh, original like IP, for Western audiences with this game, and yet they just didn't utilize it correctly. They have been too reliant on their initial success. They were never able to grow and evolve the brand. They were never able to experiment. They were never able to like find something else that worked for them. And Mortal Kombat for a long time was the highest grossing fighting game franchise because of its popularity in America. But like the way things are looking now, and especially considering my own experiences, like even anybody who seriously gets into hardcore Mortal Kombat is inevitably going to end up playing the superior Japanese fighting games. It doesn't matter whether it's Tekken or Street Fighter or Dragon Ball Fighter Z. Like, all of this is better than Mortal Kombat. Like Dragon Ball Fighter Z is like what, 8 years old now and still getting updates. Like, I don't understand why they couldn't do the same thing with Mortal Kombat 9. I don't understand why we even got sequels to Mortal Kombat 9 at all. Like, I would have much rather them taken a lot of time to produce a high quality sequel that really innovated and do all these things. And instead they just pumped out three mediocre sequels within a decade, and they just kind of just completely collapsed the entire brand. Even when 10 came out, I kind of felt that way, that this wasn't the follow-up that I wanted for Mortal Kombat. So um what do you guys think? Is Mortal Kombat a dead IP? Be sure to give me your thoughts in the comment section below.